Yeah, I think it's a good idea. We were going to just start with some brief introductions so that everybody kind of gets to know each other's background quickly. So it's going to kick it off with, well, since Lisa is not on mute, I'll kick it off with Lisa. If you want to just give us an intro to yourself.
Yeah, I've been in Austin for 21 years, left Houston for a different quality of life, and I've got a degree in nutrition from Southwest Texas. And I've been selling restaurant and equipment in Austin for 21 years. Um, I sell restaurant equipment, supplies, so that's what I do.
All right, awesome. And Kim, can you give an intro for yourself? Kim, are you hearing us or?
So my internet is freezing, so I'm gonna try.
Okay.
Do you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Kim Hanks. I'm owner of Whim Hospitality, and that is a hospitality services company, catering, florals, rentals, tents. We do about 3,000 unique jobs a year when everything's back to normal. I also own Whim Hospitality, or I also own Camp Lucy, and that is a wedding and resort out in Dripping Springs. It has 4 wedding venues and about 42 room hotel. Have a restaurant called Tilly's on property. We also have 2 hotels, small boutique hotels in England. And we're going to do weddings over there. So that's kind of new.
Awesome. And Keesha.
Hello, everyone. I'm Keesha Waits. I'm the co-founder and owner of Cleverly. Cleverly is a grain-free snack brand company. So we have right now on the market a grain-free granola sold in H-E-B and a few other stores throughout the country. And I'm a certified pastry chef by trade. And I've recently moved from Austin to Virginia, unfortunately, but fortunately, because we still got to pay our bills. And so I miss everyone there, but that's the gist of what I do on a daily basis.
Great. Well, it looks like we got somebody joining in, so that's good. Hopefully people keep rolling in. We put together a couple of just conversation starters to talk about some different topics related to negotiations and challenges facing when you're preparing for a negotiation. And so these are just kind of some starters, and we'll see, left some room at the end for people to ask their own questions. And if there are questions or topics that we want to cover that we're not covering, like maybe we'll just put them in the chat and we'll try and pay attention to that as well. So I'm just going to throw some of these out there, and then if Kim or Lisa or Keesha, these are topics that you want to chime in about or share your experiences, just please do. The first one I think should be interesting to all of us, just as women in different industries. I know as a brewery owner, it's very male dominated, both from ownership to sales reps to vendors to wholesalers. So there are, if you take classes in some of these topics, they'll talk about negotiation strategies and when to use anger or when to be more forceful. And sometimes women can, if we use those techniques, we can be seen as being idiosyncratic or inappropriate. And so I'm just looking for your experiences with if there is ways that you plan differently or prepare for negotiation depending on these kind of contexts, and if you have ever experienced like biases in your negotiations that you're having to deal with, whether that be just the other classic example is if people think that you're not knowledgeable enough about the topic. So there can be just biases in terms of your knowledge level or how they treat you based on how you express yourself. So I didn't know if anybody would like to start first on this topic.
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
I think my point of view might be just similar, but just a slight bit different. Um, as an African American woman, in any scenario, I feel like I have to, whether it's a forced issue or not, that I have to be overly prepared. Um, and the whole female anger um, is depicted on me a little differently as the angry Black woman. Um, it's not a myth, it is a very unfortunate uh, stereotype that is not always true. Um, you don't always get to express yourself in the way you would like to. I think as women, we don't ever really get to express ourselves in the way we'd like to. If it comes off as being overly emotional or um, just hormonal or something to that nature. So, in going into negotiations, I try never to go into it with anger. I know that that's a tactic or uh, a use that we can apply, to get riled up so that we're taken seriously. But my goal is to never use a tone and or language that would reflect negatively on me or my company, even though sometimes I want to scream and shout at some people, especially in the logistics realm. Product not arriving on time, but no one has an answer of when, and those types of scenarios, and negotiating money back for different things. But I personally don't use anger or aggressive tones or ill speak, because especially in which I know we're going to talk about that in a few long-term type relationships, individuals that you have to communicate on a daily basis with. um, I like to say that everyone I communicate with or everyone I do business with, they think of me as their homegirl, their friend, that, oh, Keesha, she'll understand. I just need to explain. So they work a little bit harder for me, so that my my efforts to get the things we need for our company um, feel a little bit easier whenever I approach it that way, from a very hospitable and you got my back, I got yours. I'm going to do everything I need to do to protect you as my vendor or the individual that I'm working with, and they reciprocate. So I
Maybe it's
personally
just
don't use
identifying like the mutual goals,
yeah.
right? And the long-term relationship building.
Plus, I don't ever want to be called the angry Black woman, because I'm a very pleasant and peaceful and adorable individual. Unless you
Does any,
mess with my kids, and then I think that's every woman. Every woman turns a little brown in that scenario.
do you find, does anybody else have comments they want to add too? Because it's can be really challenging to be firm, but Kim.
Mhm. So I can speak to, I don't use anger either because I'm in a services company, and it's not going to behoove me. It's not going to ingratiate me to you. People do business with people they like. So me being angry is not going to make me likable. I'm very expressive, so it could be scary if I let that go. So I can kind of speak to what I do when people are using anger towards me to get what they want. So I focus on that mirroring. So when someone gets super mad, the madder they get, the calmer I get. And then I'm trying to get them to mirror my calmness if we're face to face or if we're on the phone. The madder they are, the more I take time in my speaking, the more clear I am, the more my tone is very calming. So that's how I do that. I never clap back at anyone, and it just accentuates how out of control they are, and it kind of makes them, I find step back. I'm being extremely respectful and very knowledgeable. So it's hard for them to continue to go down that route. Then I employ something called LEAP. So I listen first, then I empathize. I'll ask them questions, and then hopefully at the end, I'm producing a really good result. So if someone says, hey, it's raining on my wedding and I want to cancel it, I will say, oh my gosh, I'll kick into empathizing. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry it's raining on your wedding day. Texas is, unpredictable with, with their weather. What do you think? Do you have any suggestions on what I could do to make your day better? Well, do you think you could find a tent? Oh my, that's a really great idea. Let me reach out. Or I have another suggestion. What if we flip this room and we have your ceremony inside, or I offer you another space? So I'm listening, I'm empathizing, I'm asking questions, and then hopefully at the end, I'm producing a good result. You also use that in sales. So you're listening, empathizing, asking questions, and producing a good result. So that's for negotiation and for sales. And it works.
Really good information. Okay. Let's see. We were going to also talk about, that's a kind of a good segue, because we were talking about really identifying like when's the right time to get into conversations or negotiations with partners. And, one of the things is, there are times in business where, it may not be the right time to enter into those kind of discussions. Or, you may find that there's just not common ground or common purpose. So, there are times we have to walk away, but there are other scenarios where, this is Keesha kind of mentioned it earlier, this is a really long standing or very important business relationship. So it's really critical to, get the outcome that you're looking for. And, one of the things that this kind of is also related to sales as well, you could spend so much time talking with someone and then realize you're not talking with the decision maker. You're not negotiating with the person that can make the final decision. And I just thought this might be a good topic, both from potentially sales or vendor relations, and how you go about knowing when, who to talk to and when to make those, those conversations happen. So Lisa, did you want to start this one?
Yeah, as far as vendor relationships, there's a give and take on that. I have a lot of vendors, a ton of vendors that I work with, but there are certain few that I will spec their equipment in because I know how they take care of my end user if something were to happen, and how readily available they are. So, and so because I would spec their equipment in, then they in turn will give me leads for when people call in direct to the factory. So that relationship is built over time, and that way I can be more the person to go to for this particular product, and I get a better discount because I get spec credit. And that's kind of how my relationships are with my vendors. And when somebody gives me a lead, one of my vendors would give me a lead, there's no way I would change spec, because they've given me that lead, and I don't want to go to a different manufacturer to jeopardize that relationship. So you have to be careful in the industry to watch what you do with your relationships with factories and vendors and things like that. The end user, the customer may say, well, hey, can you give me another manufacturer? I have to go back to the factory and say, hey, they're looking at trying to get a different manufacturer. What do you want me to do on this? Because, I don't want to ruin that relationship, but I do want to help my customer. So there's that. I don't know if that answers a question, but I deal with the end user on top of the fact that I deal with my vendors, and I don't want to burn any bridges.
Right. Kim or Keesha, did you want to add to the discussion?
I will.
Okay.
I think we're talking about negotiating just for the sake of negotiating. I think, or the way I approach it anyway, is that you start the negotiation process in the beginning of your interaction with them. So you're part of the negotiating process is building that rapport, building that relationship, so that when you get to the time where you really have to hardcore negotiate, you've already established some type of relationship with that individual. They know who you are. So there aren't a lot of times where I have to negotiate right off the bat. I build that relationship. A lot of so with Cleverly, I am responsible for production, R&D and production. So I purchase all of our raw materials, our packaging, all of that. I try not to bounce around from vendor to vendor too much, but I do talk to other vendors so that I can establish new relationships if I need to. But I also, on occasion, use those new relationships that I'm establishing towards my older relationships. Like, hey, so I've been talking to another company and they're offering me this. Are you able to match it so that I can stick with you guys? Or, I need a certain type of certification from a particular company. Hey, this other company already has the certification. Are you guys willing to get it so that we can stick with you? So I use those types of tactics with negotiating. And then if I'm not getting anywhere with a particular vendor, I will reach out to another vendor in that company to see who the next person is. I don't usually go through my everyday vendor to go over their head, but I will inquire around them, so that I don't step on their toes, so they don't make them feel like they're not providing the service that they need to. So it's just like a roundabout way to get to the next person. Then I will go back to them and say, hey, my team wants to talk to the next person. Are you able to build that relationship? Can you, give me that in? Because what we need is this. And if you're not able to provide it for me, I need to talk to the next person that is. So I give them an opportunity to provide what we're asking for. But if they can't, then I for the sake of my business, for the success of my business, I have to go to the next person. And I approach all the vendors the same way. We're in a commodities business, so prices change, prices fluctuate, people leave the company and you have to start over. So you definitely have to have more than one source at the company, or whoever your vendor is, so that you're never just left flapping in the wind trying to figure out what's next.
I would say the way that I approach that kind of sales part of meeting with people, I do research on people ahead of time. So it's really important whenever you're wanting to work with someone or you're wanting them to purchase your products, it's important that you know about them. You've gone onto their website, you've researched, do they have a philanthropic page on their website? What tenets of your company match up with their tenets? Because in this day and time, you want to match your brands with other companies that have the same core values. So you should be looking and seeing, if you want to work with that company, what are they all about? Do you match up? The other thing that I do whenever I'm networking or, if I'm on a call with someone, I ask them, hey, how do you like to be communicated with? Do you prefer an email? Do you like a phone call? Do you like a cold call? If you want a phone call, who should be on the call? How long do you want that call to last? So I ask those specific questions because there's nothing worse than getting the wrong person, because they're listening to your whole spiel and then they're thinking the whole time, how do I back out of this? Because I can't make the decision for the company and this is really awkward. So they've heard nothing I've said. I've gone through a lot of, song and dance and energy, and it's fallen flat. So I ask a lot of questions right off the bat and try to get to that person that can make those decisions.
And Kim, I think that's really smart because I field a lot of calls in areas that I have not that I don't have any say in, but it's not my lane. So I appreciate when individuals will send an email, like who is the person, they ask all those questions, and then we're able to push it to the next person. So I appreciate that from any sales individual.
Thank you. I do too. I hate to be the bottleneck too, because I'm sure you get hundreds of emails a day. And I just hate it if I'm not the person. Sometimes I'm skimming and then I'm going to the next one. And then if I get a repeat email, I'm like, oh, I was a bottleneck. And I don't want to be that girl. Yeah. So yeah, I like it whenever they ask questions.
Yes, that's it. All really good advice. I think that taking the time to do your research and plan it, how you want your conversations to go in advance is really good. One thing when I was talking to Keesha to prepare for this, we were talking about how, so I also have to, do long-term purchase planning for things like hops and malt. And so, it's built on forecasts and the growth of your business, but sometimes these are multi-year out. We have things 5 years out. And so when you have a year like 2020 hit, all that has to be re-looked at, right? Because everybody, was closed and people didn't grow as fast as they thought. And so I spent a bulk of my summer talking to hop providers and renegotiating our contracts because we didn't need as much, but they work with farmers. So it's a complete supply chain. And I'm just kind of using this to segue into some of the other things we were talking about, where when you're in a contract and you've made those kind of agreements already, having to make changes to a contract can feel really stressful. And how you approach it is really important. And so some of the things we kind of already touched on was, really, it sounds like trying to figure out where the common ground is. You guys have talked about building the relationship up and, understanding each other. So I think that those are common themes we're hearing. But I would just be curious, since, there was so much disruption last year, what, if you guys could share your experiences of, how, if you've had to make big changes or, how you've approached those discussions, if you had contracts in place and had to change them, or, alternately, like having lived through last year, maybe like, how are you approaching setting up contracts differently, just knowing all the things that we went through, because those have been on both topics on my mind a lot as I'm trying to get through the start of 2021. So anybody like to kick this one off?
I can always talk. Okay, I'm usually trying to get people to sign contracts. So I am in the position where I am the vendor. And what I've noticed through COVID and all of this craziness is people aren't wanting to sign contracts. So I do a lot of weddings. So I've lost 90% of my business through the pandemic. And people are really reading through their contracts and becoming their own lawyer and editing through. And I think you have to just stay calm about it and stay rational and let people tell you how they're feeling. So I think if I was on the flip side and I was negotiating a contract, I would do the same thing. And I would say, look, and I have recently on a computer system and even in marketing, there's no way that I can pay $10,000 for a year contract for marketing in Brides of Austin, right? I can't do it. So I will come to them and say, I've been a long time partner with you. I can't do this. Can you walk me through some options that maybe you've done with other clients? Because I want to continue our relationship. I believe that you have a really good brand. It matches up with me. Can you call me back and tell me what you can do for me? I did it with SurveyMonkey. I've done it with a lot of companies. So I think if you give them the opportunity and you say, can you walk me through some options? Can you give me a call back after you think about it and let me know if we can change the contract in a way, and not expect them to give you an answer right away? I think that has really helped me negotiate contracts moving forward.
Yeah, we have similar conversations with a lot of service providers that, it's like, hey, we want to continue the work, but right now we just can't do it. And so some things that came up are also just alternate payment arrangements instead of just one lump sum for the year. We're like, hey, could I pay this over 12 months? Just so that from a cash flow perspective, it's not as big of a hit. So, even just talking through, different aspects of how you do business can kind of make it work for both parties. Keesha, did you have anything contract related that you were dealing with?
Sure. We try to stay away from contracts as much as we can on nuts and seeds and fruits and things, but because the market is just so crazy. But through 2020, I've been really lucky to have some pretty amazing vendors that are always sending me like, hey, we're running low on this. Do you need to place any orders between here and here? So I've been really fortunate to have that type of scenario at the scale of our business. I'm sure as we get larger, that may change a little bit. But for the most part, I've approached contracts. The few that we have had the opportunity to say yes or no to. They've wanted to lock in a price. I think that would be the only way I would enter a long-term contract, is if it was a consistent price for that period of time. We just entered one with our nut company just because they've projected what they would have for 2021. So in order for them to project, they need to have a certain number of contracts too. So we were able to negotiate a really good one with them, but it was only for 6 months versus for a year. So negotiating the time frames, and again, as you said earlier, negotiating the payment structure. So not only did we negotiate the time frame of the contract, but the payment structure of the contract as well. So we weren't coming off of all of that at the top. And then we also negotiated the terms of, so if we didn't hit that volume within that 6 months, what it looked like on the other side. We negotiated that we were given an additional 3 months in order to hit that before we received the penalties from it, or paying for all of it, outright. So like knowing all the different angles that you can come at to get what you want for your company, and what you need for the success of your business, and also knowing when to say, no, this isn't the right deal for me. I'm going to have to cut. I can't enter this deal. And sometimes just that alone, saying, no, this isn't the one for me, I'm going to have to look elsewhere, will motivate them to come back with something better. or something stronger or something that benefits you a little bit more. So knowing
I
when to
agree.
fold them, I guess. Yeah.
I think
Lisa,
that through 2020, we've really learned to mix business with the person of who we are. I think it's enabled us to be real with, like, hey, this is my livelihood. This is what I can do. And I feel like it's really humanized all of us because we have really been splayed open and shown our vulnerabilities. And I think that it has made it easier to kind of drop that veil of being impervious and, oh no, everything's great and fine. It's allowed me to really hold people accountable for results. So if someone is asking for advertising or some type of contract and, they're making me a promise, I can go back and say, hey, I'm just not getting the business there. Would you like to negotiate a different rate? I have X amount of spending dollars, and I'm just not going to be able to give you this if this is what I'm getting in return. So I feel like it has allowed us to be more straightforward, so.
yeah, makes
Yeah,
sense.
and asking for what you want. I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs and sometimes as women, um, we shy away from asking for what we want or what we need. Um, so being a little more assertive on asking for what you want and what you need for your business, and not just going along with what you think industry standard is. Because as I've learned over the course of the years, in the beginning, whatever price they gave us, we just took it. We're like, oh, somebody's going to sell us some nuts. Great, And then over the course of the years, especially with my position, what I purchase dictates what we're able to sell our product for. And if I can't negotiate the prices to the point where we can make a profit, then we are not a successful company. So as I've grown in the business, I've learned that those pennies count. Like, give me 2 cents off and we're friends, because over the course of millions of nuts, that's 2 cents is huge for our bottom line. So even if it's just asking for a point or two, um, it's worth it, and knowing what that value is, what the negotiating value is to your bottom line.
Yep.
Well, I've been able to offer like third-party leasing to where you don't have to come up with the money up front to do your resupply for equipment. And it's been, it helps to be able to offer that where, and I work with someone in Houston. She's been doing it for a long time. And some of my restaurants, you don't want to insult them or, say something like, have you thought of this, but it seems to benefit them to where they're not out of pocket the upfront money. And they can space it over a couple of years. I'm not sure what the minimum is, but this has been something, and it's almost like at 0% interest. It just depends on what they're offering. And so those are negotiable ways to go if you're going to get a resupply on equipment and things like that, because that's out there. It's definitely out there. It may be at your bank, but you can do that and roll some other things in with it.
Sounds like one technique that might work for you is trying to add value to the offering. We had a question come up through the chat, so I was like, oh, got to pay attention to those too. Somebody was asking about, I have an investor business-oriented negotiation question.
Yeah, that's me, Sawyer. Sorry, I jumped on the call through Kindle's link on Facebook, so I was typing as Kindle for a minute.
That's okay.
But yeah, I I'm constantly kind of looking for mentorship. You know, my business is a pretty young business, and we have, you know, we've been trying to grow from the beginning, and we kind of hit the ground running pretty aggressively in terms of like trying to fundraise for a larger project. And, you know, so I've learned so much about investor relationships and partnerships or attempted partnerships kind of by failing. Um, and I think a lot of people can like, I think because of that, I'm very unsure. I'm kind of defensive because I've been meeting with all of these potential partnerships, specifically like financial investor type of partnerships that kind of see us as like a green group and have come in pretty aggressively in almost a way that seems like they're trying to take advantage of us. And as a woman, that's kind of like the business facing front. Like yesterday, I sat down with a group. It's potentially an amazing opportunity, but I kind of like tried to cut out some of the flowery bullshit in the beginning to be like, this is what we want. This is what we need. I'm not really willing to like go down the rabbit hole of this long investor potential collaboration if you know you want more than we're willing to offer. And then after the meeting, I was like, oh man, I sounded so I kind of came across like really intense, and I'm always a little self-aware of that. But so I'm just curious if any of you have, you know, experience with that, and you know how to kind of dance that line of being that courtship and then the beginning of negotiations, and how long you kind of let that happen before it just is. Because it's just, for me, it's been a lot of waste of time, and I'm like
Right.
frustrated with that, especially, you know, on the other end of the pandemic. So
I'll field a little bit of that myself, if you don't mind. You know, I definitely went through in the early days of our business. I felt like I wasted, you know, had unproductive meetings, especially with bankers in the beginning. And part of it was just I think kind of what you're just reflecting on what you're saying. It's like understanding what your real needs are and figuring out a way to get that out up front so that you are, you know, entering these discussions with a party that sees where you're coming from and really understands what you're willing, you know, you're setting boundaries. But like, I think what we're hearing in some of the, you know, in the discussion today, it's like how you go about that is, you know, is very critical. But I think that, you know, it is important for you to be able to really articulate, you know, this is the business that we have, you know, these are our goals, this is our mission, you know, this is what we're looking for. And if that matches up with what this particular investment group is looking to achieve, then you know that you know these meetings may be productive. But you know, it can also, I definitely have had meetings where I felt like you just want to take our business, you know, like I'm working my butt off here and you just want all the, you know, so those kind of discussions can feel very intimidating as well, in my opinion. Does anybody else want to talk about this? Yep.
Hey, Sawyer, I'm wondering, this is Kim. I'm wondering if you have developed your elevator speech. I'm assuming you have, but
well,
so,
in this specific conversation was something that they approached us with, kind of about a new concept.
okay.
So they came to us with an idea, and this has also happened many times where people come up, they're like, hey, we love what you do, we want to collaborate maybe on a new concept. And in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, but you really just want me to do all the work, and we're not gonna make any money. Like, so yes, and I think I've gotten through hundreds of investor meetings now. I'm good about talking about what we want and our goals. I just need, I guess, more confidence that I'm not. And I think, once again, this is not a black and white answer. I think it's more just like, I need to know that like I am not getting myself into a bad situation, because in a lot of ways I'm making the decisions for the rest of my group. So, and as a woman, I feel like as a younger woman in a group of men that are approaching me with money, I second guess myself a lot, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I would say, I think it's great to state your value, and it's great to say, this is going to take me in a direction that's going to, move me away from where we need to go. And you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And I think that's okay to, hey, I'm looking for the right investor. And that's hard because you need their money. But I think that you're being, you protecting what your vision is going to be very important, because to be everything to everyone else and then not going where you want to go is not going to be satisfying for you, because you inherently are going to spend your money. They are going to want more skin in the game than just labor.
Yeah.
They will come back at you, and then you have fulfilled what they wanted, but then you're not closer to where you want to go. So I think it's so hard as women to not be people pleasers also. So just really understanding where you want to go and then being clinical about it. If I take that opportunity, is it going to get me closer to where I want to go? If it doesn't, and it's moving you in another direction that isn't exciting, then that's a hard pass.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Sawyer, I would like to just add, in regards to confidence, about maneuvering through a particular deal, I wish that there was like a little magic ball that we could shake and it would tell us, yes, do this. There's so much success behind that door. Unfortunately, there isn't. So I feel like the best approach is to be knowledgeable at every step, to do your due diligence on those individuals. Not only what are they asking of you, but what do you need from them outside of their money, because just money doesn't do it. Like there's the work and the labor. So what do you need outside of them that will help both of you accomplish the goal? What do you need from them outside of money to help you both accomplish the goal? And being a woman with a group of men, and you said you were younger than them too. Again, do your due diligence. What have they done in the past? What are they doing now? How have they helped other companies? Where did they get the money that they're bringing over to you? How did they get it? So do your due diligence and research on them as well. Like Kim said, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. Where are their connections? How can they help you in future endeavors? Not just this one, but down the road. So really dig in and figure out what it is you want from what they want from you, whether you can provide that or not, and what you want from them, and whether you feel confident that they can provide it from you for you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. It's really valuable to me to have other people to talk about. Once again, I'm really looking for some positive conversations, and I really admire all of you. So thank you so much.
Sawyer, one other thing that I thought of while we were going through this is just, in part of doing your own research, maybe building up your own, knowledge on all the different types of funding and relationships that are out there, so that so earlier in the talk, we were talking about checking out different pricing of the competition, right? And it's like, so part of this is like, what frameworks are available? Like maybe you're only being approached with one type of investment offering when, there might be 3 or 4 other solutions out there. And so just knowing what options are available to you or are on the table may inform you. And then also you can, bake that into, your initial discussion of like, what your goals are, but, these are the terms, or these are the part of this is just setting your boundaries. You know, it sounds like from what we've been talking about, but really knowing what your end goal is. And but I would just say sometimes understanding what different funding options are available is helpful to those discussions.
Absolutely.
Did anybody else have any? These are some good questions.
I think I just threw in the chat, and Kim was saying here that one thing over the years that I've messed up on is not paying to get an attorney to review something, especially when I've thought, oh, this seems really clear cut. I get it. I'm a small business. I can't afford this exorbitant fee to get a person to look over it. And then even one specific time when I was in a group concept, I think, and other people might be able to weigh in on this, but I think I also relied subconsciously on groupthink. Well, if all these other businesses are going in on it, clearly they've done the due diligence, so it's still a good decision. And in the end, we all ended up in a pretty challenging situation. And so I think on one hand, we could have all thought, oh, well, these other people have done it, so they've vetted it too. And I really thought we vetted it by an attorney and we just didn't. And in the end, we all signed something that was pretty harmful to each one of our businesses. And looking back, I'm like, wow, I thought we did, but I can't believe I never got that reviewed by an attorney. So just knowing, one, that there are lots of different attorneys out there and you don't have to go with the wrong one. And you can shop around and get testimonials and see who's been helpful and really come to this group, I think, to ask if people have advice. But two, if it's something really important that, yes, it's worth the money to get it reviewed by an attorney. To this date, I still am like, we don't need to pay somebody to review this. Like, I understand it, we got it. And the times I have not, we have been sorry. So, because we didn't understand in this one document afterwards, this one word, and that one word, literally, he was like, this one word is where you just turned over everything and you can't get it back. And I was like, dang it. So I don't know if our experts have things on that, but just when to, even just leases and simple things, but you're like, oh, I need to have somebody else put their eyes on this. And that's hard, but it takes the pressure off of you too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, having an extra set of eyes on any document really. I'm a pastry chef by trade, so my business hat is always cocked to the left. So we recently brought on another business partner in 2019, and she went to law school, but she never practiced law. So having her on the team has been extremely eye-opening for some of the contracts that we've entered, thinking, hey, we read it, there's nothing crazy in there. And then she reads it and she's got like all this highlighted, because my mind doesn't think like a lawyer, but hers does. So, making that investment, even if it's like LegalZoom, I don't know if they do stuff like that, but just someone to look at your contracts and your documents, especially something that affects your business overall, just having a second set of legal-minded eyes on it to catch those words or phrases that just seem like, oh, that's okay, I understand what that means, but it means something totally different in the world of contracts. And
we ran into interesting situations with an equipment vendor that's in Italy. So reading their terms of their contracts, they tend to interpret it differently than ours. So my strategy has been just eliminating as much language as I can from the contract, because it's very robust. It's just any and all situations you could ever imagine. And I was like, do we really need this in here? I would try to strike out almost everything and make them fight for what they want to put in, because it's just silly.
And Keesha, you brought up timing. I went to, actually, I'm remembering now, a similar talk like this, but it was given by the attorneys. And they said it's common in negotiations for people to get rushed, and that they will try to rush you and say, I got to have this in by 5 and and do not be rushed. That take the time, do the due diligence, and that the deal doesn't go away at 5 miraculously. If they really want in with you and it's the right partnership, that they will let you have a day, 2 days, 3 days to go over it with your attorney. But I know that's something where I've fallen short too, is I'm like, oh my God, especially too with media, but like, we got to do this by 4 o'clock or we're not going to get it. And then we've been misquoted or things have been wrong. And so knowing when the rush is, but also knowing, especially with those contracts, if you're signing it, to take that time.
I concur. That was one of the points that I was going to say. I love sending things over to my lawyer because it makes me take a hot second to rethink also. Like, okay, I think it's really important to understand how much you can spend on each contract too, and not get it twisted on, oh, I'm gonna like take some from over here and move it over there. I mean, really stay true to what you need, and then ask for it. I mean, what's the worst thing they're gonna do? They're gonna say no. They need your business, so they may come back with something a little bit less. I've done it all through, my career, because I felt like I grew up with lack. So I'm always holding on, to my money and piecing it out, so I think that's okay, and slow it down. Like Kendall said, it's not going to go away. Just slow it down.
Yeah. Also realizing when someone's using that technique on you. We had in trying to renegotiate a hop contract, this younger sales guy just kept pushing me off forever. And I finally, and then at the last minute, oh, it has to be done. And it was like Friday, before the end of the month, kind of situation. And I finally wound up just figuring out how to get to his boss because he was just kind of jacking us around. And we wound up coming up with a much better outcome, getting a couple more people from that company involved in the discussion. So yeah, don't be rushed or forced into something. That's never a good feeling. And I really do agree with Kim as well that, I find sometimes just being able to put out there, if you want something more, they may not give you everything you want, but, being upfront and saying, well, can you do this? Can we add this? Like, how can you add a little bit more value to make this deal worth me doing, and you wind up with more benefits, whether it be better payment terms or just I don't know. It's not always just about the money. A lot of times it's like how the business is and not paying up front or, having more flexibility, so those are all things that I know we touched on, but I tend to think a lot about. I want flexibility and options,
And Kim made a comment just now that struck something for me. So she said, growing up with lack. So sometimes when you come from that standpoint, you don't ask for what you deserve. And as women, I think that happens a lot. Sorry, you've made the comment that confidence. Well, I can't give you that confidence. You have to own that confidence. None of the ladies here, we can push you and hold you up, as best we can, but that confidence has got to come from way deep down. And being an entrepreneur in itself, like taking that step, shows that you already have the confidence. You just have to like hold on to it and be true about it, because I too have come from a position of lack and in many situations have not asked for what I deserve, only asked for what I thought I could get. And if you can't see what you truly deserve for yourself, no one's going to give it to you. They're going to keep digging until they give you just what they think you deserve, So, and most people don't see your true worth the way you would see your true worth. So hold on to that confidence, grab it tight, and carry it with you in every meeting. I tell this story all the time. My aunt was a professional basketball player, and during that time, she did a secret commercial, like way back in the 80s. And it was secret was their logo was never let them see you sweat. So she's in this locker room and all these people are around and I think they lost the game or whatever, but she's still really upbeat in the commercial. And at the end, she says, never let them see you sweat. I think I saw that commercial when I was 12. And that has been my mantra through life. Like there will be things that don't go your way. There will be things that come up, but never let them see you sweat. Don't, even if you don't have it fully in you at the moment in that meeting, fake it. you know, so
That's figurative, right? Because I sweat really profusely all the time.
secret, it'll do it. Yeah, but yeah, just grab that confidence, Sawyer, and take it with you everywhere. And I'm preaching to myself as well. Like, it's not something that's easy in every scenario, especially in new scenarios, but um, you can do it. Fake it. I fake it
Yeah,
all.
I have to balance like this level of like vulnerability, which is kind of like I'm a hospitality professional. I'm a
Mhm.
people pleaser by trade, so it's definitely an interesting balance of, um, and I'm pretty confident in these conversations. I just struggle retrospectively, like my mirror neurons are overactivated, and I tend to leave those meetings and like pick myself apart. So this is what I needed today. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
I almost feel like if we ask for what we want, we don't feel like we're nice. And I've really been digging into what nice means. And what nice is, when you're nice, you're doing it for other motives. You're doing it to get something back. So I don't really care if I'm seen as nice anymore. I want to be seen as being kind. And negotiating a contract or standing up for my value doesn't mean that I'm not a kind person. It means that I am working and I am hustling for the dream that's been put in my heart. And that's okay. That doesn't make me a bad person. And I'm constantly, combating that inner voice of who I should be as a woman. I need to be, more quiet, and I need to be, have a servant's heart. And I do have a servant's heart. I am in hospitality. That's the reason. But I can still speak my value and get what I need to accomplish what has that dream that's been put in my heart. That it's there for a reason, and that's okay. So try not to mix, am I being seen as a good person with negotiations? I think is a big thing for me.
Yeah, and
Feedback, yeah.
one other comment, and then I'm going to be quiet for the rest of the time. Um, it popped in my head as a kid. It was always the girls were seen and not heard. Like, we were supposed to be these dainty little people that were seen and not heard. The boys could run and jump and flip and scream and holler, but the girls were supposed to be seen and not heard, and that's a stigma that over the years, I think, especially with the millennial group of individuals that we have now, you can't squash their voices. But as a 47-year-old woman, I'm still, figuring out when my voice is elevated, you know, and when I need to use my voice in an elevated manner, not in regards to screaming and yelling, but like Kim was saying, like for this dream that has been placed on my heart. Like each of us on this call, we're on the call because there was something that was placed on us, something for us to do bigger than just sit. So when you are defending that or negotiating that, um, you don't have to be seen as nice because that's not what it's about. It's not about making friends all the time. Like I tell my kids all the time, I'm your mom. I would love to be your friend, but I'm not your friend in every scenario of your life. And they're one of my biggest negotiations on a daily basis. Like, so no, they don't see me as nice all the time, but they know that I love them, which goes back to Kim's kind. Like we don't have to be nice, but yes, we want to walk away, you know, being viewed as an upstanding person.
Well, I'm very thankful for each of you agreeing to participate and that we had this call today. I really like how I'm feeling pretty inspired myself. Definitely just appreciate the time and hearing different perspectives, especially different types of business owners. I think sometimes it's easy for me just to get siloed in your own worldview. So it's nice to hear different perspectives, especially, hospitality and different backgrounds here. So I hope this was of value, and I hope that everybody, you know, got something out of this meeting today. And it's just really nice seeing everybody too. So especially after last week. So I don't know, unless anybody else has anything, I think that we kind of went a little bit over, but I think that's okay. And I don't know, thank you, Kim and Keesha and Lisa and everyone who attended today.
Allison was just saying the next coffee series is March 4th with Tam Hawkins, Executive Director of the Austin Chamber of Commerce, Austin Black Chamber of I can't ever get them all right in a row. But yeah, oh, there you go. The Greater Austin Black Chamber of Commerce CEO. So y'all joining us on March 4th too.
Awesome.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Keesha.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Allison.
Bye.